Well, so it's the Dixie School District. I'm there to represent the community. I think that's the role of a trustee of a school board, to kind of listen to the community, understand their needs, and then try and work with the other trustees towards the goals that I think are important to the community. So paying attention, understanding what their concerns are is part of the job, and yeah. The issues that are facing the district are the same issues I think are facing California right now. We have something new called the Common Core, which changes the curriculum for all subjects. In the past, we have had changes to curriculum, but generally they'd be staged. So you would have math curriculum changed every 6 years, and then you'd have social science change every 6 years. And usually they're staggered, so you had some time to kind of react to it, get the teachers trained, everything done. We're going to change curriculum for all courses, and I wouldn't even call it an update. Usually there were more or less updates to curriculum. This is a complete revamping of the curriculum. All subjects is going to be done in just a few years. On top of that, we're changing the assessment system. So we have a history now of our progress, looking at subgroups and everything else, which gives us a rich amount of information for us to make decisions on. We're going to have a whole new metric system. So the numbers we're going to start looking at next year won't be comparable to those old numbers because they're different metrics. So we're starting a whole new curriculum course. We don't have any foundation to know whether or not we're on the right course because we just start counting right from square one. So we're going to need 2 or 3 years before we're even going to know that this is working or not working. And then on top of that, they changed the whole way that we fund education. And they've pushed a whole lot of responsibility down to the local school boards, what's called a local control funding formula, that allows school boards to really decide how to allocate funds to what programs. And in the past, the state would tell us, okay, GATE, which is for your gifted kids, we're going to give you this much money for GATE. We're going to give you this much money for teacher education. We're going to give you this much money for your transportation. We're going to give you, and we would always try and survive in all those little buckets. They just said, here's all your money. You guys go figure it out. You decide what your priorities are. So when you add all that stuff together, it's this huge amount of change that we need to go through and try and also keep our eye on the ball, which is the education of the kids. So I think the most important things we've got to worry about is how to manage through that change. And it's going to be around teacher education, community involvement, community education. There's a lot of stuff to go through, that much change to absorb in that fast time. So the key to especially in the public arena is transparency. You want to have, we have formed a budget committee in our district. We want to keep the staff clearly understanding how we're spending the money because it affects them, it affects their pocketbook. So we want them to understand how the money is being spent, why the budget was created the way it was. We want the community involved. Now again, I'll go back to the story earlier about the local control funding formula. Before we had all these buckets and we would describe how we were able to do different things with all these different buckets. We're going to have to tell people now how we're going to prioritize certain things so that certain things get paid attention to at the district. So the control, if we're being transparent and everyone knows about it, then if we're doing something that's adverse to their needs or their beliefs or their interests, they'll tell us. So it's about being very transparent. As a trustee, we have kind of a role to. I mean, the district is run by the superintendent and the staff, but trustees have to challenge them to explain to us certain things, and so it's really our job to make sure that we kind of bring out issues that need to be vetted, need to be talked. So that's really our job. So it's us doing our due diligence and looking at what's going on and making sure those questions are asked of them. So it's us in inquiry mode, making sure things are talked about. It's transparency. It's the public trust is, comes from, again, I'll talk about transparency. It comes from them understanding who you are and understanding why you're doing what you're doing. So there's a lot of communication. So it's communication, it's being transparent, it's getting out there, just, spending time with them, going to events and just, being around the school. I think it's important as a trustee to stop by the schools and visit and talk to people and just kind of meet the parents and be at certain events so they know you're paying attention to the school and not just at the meeting, at the paperwork you're handed. You're actually paying attention to the kids running around and what's happening and stuff like that. You cooperate, you collaborate with the public, you work with them, you're transparent with them. I don't really understand the phrase control myself. How I conduct myself is try and spend time with the community and try and be transparent about what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking it, and so they understand if I do make a decision or have a vote, why I did it. So that would be. Well, maybe the thing to talk about here is as a trustee, I have no real say or power or control over anything as a single trustee. As a single trustee, you're a member of, in this case, a board of 5. And it's the board of 5 that makes decisions. And it takes a majority, 3 of us, to make a decision. So one way you could is not essentially working with the board towards a consensus. I mean, it's very important for us to bring whatever our opinions are and our thoughts are and our information that we know to a meeting, and then work with the other trustees towards something that, an ideal case, we've all worked towards something we're all in agreement, and that's the best. You can come to the situation and say, I'm just going to stick my feet in the ground, I'm not going to move, and you can be disruptive, and you can be uncollaborative and uncooperative, and you can bring things to a halt. And so if the board is not moving ahead, is not working with the district, not providing good guidance, that can really help. That will really hurt the district over time. So even though you do have positions and you have strong feelings about things, you need to understand that you're just one of 5, and it is, excuse me, it's your ability to influence the others, or really to kind of step back and let things go. If you cannot convince the others of your position and everyone's going the other direction, you need to start whatever influences you can do on the edges to maybe, on the margin, to change things a bit. But at the end of the day, we've got to move forward. It isn't about just constant battle and argument. So one way, excuse me, you can adversely affect things is being an obstructionist. I've seen trustees who just want to stick on an issue and believe it's right, that they're not going to let anything go. That doesn't help. We're there to compromise and get things done. And so the Ed Code is kind of the rules and regs of the, it's like the DMV. You've got driver's license, and you got it when you drive in the roads. You got rules. You can't speed. You can't turn. Go down one-way streets. I mean, Ed Code is simply the rules that we all follow. So we need to follow them. Some of them relate directly to us, a lot of them relate to the district, and we look to the superintendent to kind of help us out with that. The whole concept of charter schools came from the idea that we were going to create schools in California that didn't have to follow Ed Code, and that's one of the differences. The charter schools basically can ignore Ed Code. But as a public school, a district school, we do follow the Ed Code. And so, I mean, yes, that's what it is. It's the rules and regulations. I mean, I'm sure I understand what the question is getting at.
Well, you pretty much answered it. Said, in what way is that governance involved?
Yeah, it's our rules. I mean, it's the rule book, and it's, by the way, it's about this thick, and it's but it just tells us, it tells us how to work with our staff. It tells us what the expectations are around testing and curriculum and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's new local control funding formula. That was a major rewrite. All of that, how we're funded, is in there. It's just everything. It's kind of everything you can think of thrown into a big giant book. Well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the don't be an obstructionist. I mean, code of ethics, so we got Ed Code, that's the rules and regulations. You want to go above that, so what are we doing here? We're not just paying attention to the rules, we're trying to, concern ourselves with the education of the kids of our community. We're trying to keep our community kind of involved in education. So the code of ethics to me is things that I pay attention to, like my belief in transparency and collaboration and communication, is because I believe that's the right way to conduct the business. So I guess that's part of my code of ethics. Being, to me, you can say being transparent, being honest, is the same as me. It's like, believing what you're saying and say what you believe and be, and tell people about it so they understand it, is kind of some basic codes of ethics. I mean, there are some technical codes of ethics about, not stealing and not doing stuff like that, but I don't think that's usually an issue. It's around, you're here to do a job representing your community with a few other people, and who need to come together and work towards a common goal. And so the code of ethics are just the things you do to make sure that works. And to me, it gets back to engagement, and communication, transparency, collaboration.